Okay, welcome back. This is going to be part 2 in the basic canning series, Basics of Canning. And this one is going to be on tools. But first, I do have one more small thing to talk about that I didn't talk about yesterday. Probably good since that was a very long video. Um, when you are looking at buying a pressure canner, make sure you are looking at a pressure canner and not a pressure cooker. They are different. They're used differently. You can cook in a pressure canner if you need to. I have. When my oven in my mobile home went out, the top worked fine, but the oven went out. And I had no money to replace it. It was going to be, I would have to buy a brand new stove. So I opted for some cheaper options because a new stove was not in my budget. I used the pressure canner, that big one you saw yesterday, and I cooked turkeys in it. When it came, I get a free one from work, or they were on sale, and I would put the turkey in there, wash it and everything, put it in there. It's totally thawed, and enough water, and in about an hour and a half or less, depending on the size of the turkey, and I've had 15 pounders in it, your turkey was done. Now, I don't have exact times for how long it takes. I was doing kind of trial and error, and I figured if it wasn't done, I could put it back in and cook it some more. But what happens is that the turkey will fall apart. It's not a pretty turkey to sit on your table, but it's tender, totally moist no matter what part of it you're eating. And you get this wonderful, wonderful bone broth out of it, because of the pressure canning or the pressure cooking that I was doing in the canner. You get all of the extracts out of the bones. The bones will be softer than you're used to. They're not the hard bones. You don't have to boil the carcass to make bone broth if that's something you choose to do, because the pressure canner's already done it for you. So like I say, it's not pretty, but man, it was good and tender and juicy. So, just so you know, you can cook in them if you need to. I wouldn't normally, because it's aluminum. I don't like cooking in aluminum. From everything I've heard and read, they think that it does contribute to Alzheimer's. I'm in good health. I have minor health issues, nothing to do with my brain, but Alzheimer's is definitely not something I want. So I don't cook in aluminum. I do use aluminum foil for various things, but I figure, if my grandmother lived to be 93 and she cooked with aluminum stuff and it didn't bother her, but I don't know if I would have as good a genes as she does. So I'll stick with stainless steel if I can get it. There's the difference between the pressure cooker and the pressure canner. The pressure cookers are usually smaller. I have a little small one in order to just cook like a pot of beans. Here in high elevation, for some bizarre reason, it took me 2 days of regular cooking of dry beans for them to be soft enough to be edible. I'm not doing that. That's crazy. So, anyway, today's, I don't know, not a lesson really. It's just a talk. I'm passing on what knowledge I've got. I want to show you the tools that I use the most. You'll probably have some similar things for some of these, and just go for it and do what works for you. Okay, So first thing is the actual canning tools. Some of these you can buy in a set off of Amazon. You're going to need a jar lifter. That's what this is. I actually have two of these because I got Mom's. When your jars are in the pot, let's pull it. There we go. You can see that a little better. When you're putting your jars into your canning pot, and you've got boiling water in there already because you've done a hot pack, and I'll explain all that. But your jars are going to be hot. They're going to be filled with hot food and liquid. Your canner is hot. The water is boiling inside. You don't want to just pick this up with its lid on it, its lid and ring, and set it down in there. It's hot. When your pressure canner is done, or your water bath, either one, when it's done, you need to take your jars out so they can sit and cool. You pick them up. Let me do this. Let me show you what a ring and everything looks like on it. You're probably familiar with this, but just to be thorough, let's do it this way. I did buy a new box of regular mouth rings and lids. I felt like some of mine were getting really old, and they do get a little rusty sometimes. So this is your lid, the flat lid, and these are Kerr brand, which is good. What they say, you do not have to put these in hot water anymore. I still do. It's kind of an extra sanitation thing for me. I don't wash the lids, okay? They just go in a small pan of hot water. It doesn't have to be boiling, just hot. And I leave them in there for a couple of minutes. The original reason for that was to soften this rubbery part around the edge. There you go. That reddish stuff. It's a rubbery stuff which it will sink down onto the lid. It will indent it and it will seal it. That's where your seal comes from. So when you've got lids with the rings, and we do what they call finger tight. You put your lid on and you put the ring on, and you're just tightening it, just three fingers, maybe four, depending on how your hands work. But when you're putting your jars into the canner or pulling them out, you want one of these jar lifters. They're a little fiddly till you get used to how they work. I usually grab this side. This is wood, so it's not going to be hot. I usually grab that one with my thumb, and then I can use my other fingers to grab the rest of it, and you put it underneath at the narrow part of the neck on a regular mouth jar. It'll be underneath the ring, and that allows you, and you squeeze it tight, that allows you to pick it up and put it down. You pick it up, you put it in your canner. When it's done, you pick it up and you bring it out of your canner, and you're going to set it on a folded towel. Does not have to be a super thick one. You want it out of any breezes. So, if your windows are closed or whatever, just on your kitchen counter, but make sure you put like a big towel folded in half. You want some cushion between these hot jars and the cold counter. You don't want cracked jars, so that's why to do that. Now, with a wide mouth jar, whether it's a pint or whether it's a quart, it's the same thing. I'm not going to pull a ring out for this one, but these don't have this little indentation, which is where it fits on here underneath the extra lip of glass down there, and then there's the ring. we don't have this on the wide mouth. There is a lip, extra lip down here at the bottom that it bumps out. It's not part of the rings. The ring doesn't fit on this. I'm glitching again. There we go. The ring doesn't fit on this rim. It just fits on the screw parts there. So you want this underneath that glass. It's part of the glass, this glass bump that goes around. If you're squeezing tightly enough, you've got it. It's not going to drop, okay? Again, putting it in, pulling it out, setting it on your towel. So that's how those work. I'm going to tell you a little bit about lids. A lot of people, I have seen people reuse these. Do not. There's no guarantee they will work a second time. If you want to reuse them in some manner, besides making, little decorations to hang on your Christmas tree because they're shiny, you can save these if they're in good condition. Once you open your jar, you can save these and wash them and keep them separate from your other lids and just use them if you're storing things in jars. And that goes for whether it's the regular mouth or the wide mouth. What will happen once it's canned, it's going to create an indentation on this red rubbery part. So if you try to use it to recan something that's water bathed or pressure canned, it might seal, it might not. If it doesn't, and you don't go in to look at every jar in your pantry that you've done this to for a month, you could end up with a whole lot of spoiled food because it won't hold. It'll let loose, air gets in, mold grows, bacteria grows. Some of that, you can't see it. Botulism is an issue if you don't do things properly. Keep things clean. Use new lids. Botulism is not visible. Botulism is, you can't smell it. And I'm told you really can't taste it. So you don't want to take any chances with it. This is why you want to make sure that everything you're using is clean, that everything that you're doing is, in my mind, by the book. Now, there are things that I do that are not FDA approved, and that comes down to certain items that they don't approve that you do it that way. I'm sorry. I have a frog in my throat this morning. Anyway, we'll get to more of that later. But I wanted to show you what you have. Rings are reusable. And you don't store your jars with rings. Okay? You just don't. That can create a false seal. If it's going to pop loose because there's something in it is wrong, this lid will pop loose. You'll go to pick it up and the lid may fall off. You'll go to use your can opener to open the lid, and it won't have that suction on it that you'll hear. You find there's the rings around the jar lid that this screws onto. It's like a screw, okay? There's one area where you have a lot more room at the end of the top screw band thing. And that's where you want to use your can opener. Now, I have one of these that actually has a jar opener on the end of it. The old-time church key can openers, if you use the rounded edge and not the pointy one, You can use one of those. There's a number of different kinds out there that you can use. I've seen people use, and it scares me, they use a butter knife to just grab the lip of this and pull up on it hard. The problem with that is if you're not real strong in your hands and have good control over it, it'll take the lid off, but your jar may also go and half your stuff is now on your counter or in your sink. I like using this. It's a whole lot easier. You just put the bottom part underneath the edge of this and lift up. Normally this one doesn't put a dent in the lid. Okay. But again, because once you've canned and you take this off, you're going to see that there's an indentation in this red rubbery silicone type stuff whatever their formula is that they're using now. It used to be rubber. Now I think it's more silicone. Anyway, you have to have lids and you have to have rings for every jar that's going in the canner, whichever canner it is. If you have jars but you don't have lids for them, you can buy this kind of thing. Comes with both pieces. It'll be a dozen of each in there. If you have plenty of rings, because those are reusable, you can buy just the they're about, I don't know, maybe about an inch thick. They'll be the same size because it's for whichever one you're looking at, the wide mouth or the narrow mouth, and there'll be 12 lids inside. So you can buy those easily. If Walmart has them in stock, the Golden Harvest brand are $1.47 for 1 dozen of lids. There has been a lid shortage this year, and I bought some off of Amazon that were Golden Harvest, but I paid a premium for them. I paid over $3 a dozen, but I needed them. So when Walmart got more in, I bought like 12 boxes of them. Not all at once because I wanted to give other people a chance to get them if they needed them, but they restocked them. So I ended up with an extra dozen boxes. So that's 144 lids. So I'm good through next year, I think. Okay. So you need a jar lifter. The next thing you're going to need is one of these little plastic wands with the magnet on the end. You don't have to have one. I find it handy. That way, when I've got lids in, let's do it this way. When I have lids sitting in the hot water, some people scoop them out with a spoon. Some people just use warm water. They can pick it up with their fingers. I like using these. You stick it down in there, grabs hold of it, you lift it out, you put it on your jar. Put this where you can see it. You put it on your jar lid, just stick your finger on it lightly and pull this off. Now, when you've done that, your lid, clean lid, hot lid, is sitting on your jar full of food. You're ready to go. You can do all of your jars at one time and then put all your rings on at one time. Fingertip tight. Don't crank it down. You won't get a good seal doing that. So, and we'll go over this when I actually show you canning stuff. Okay. The other thing that you'll need, big time, is a funnel. They come in different kinds. I had some that I had picked up at a thrift store many years ago, and they were little metal ones, little aluminum ones. Sometimes they'll have a little ring holder on the side that you can stick your finger through, kind of like a teacup would be. Okay. There are now larger ones. The opening on them, the bowl on them, is larger, and they come in plastic. And I have seen Homestead Tessie use one that's metal, and it's quite large, round. I got this one at Walmart. This is plastic and silicone, and you push it from the inside, and it pops out so that it will fit small jars and big jars. That fits in there. The next one down fits in there. So you can fit both size jars. This fits in both size jars with no problem without being wobbly. Now this one's a little top heavy, but it's not real wobbly. This one fits even better because it's a little lower down and it's not wobbly. What I really like about this is that it's oval. One that was this wide in a round would be fine as well, but I really like this oval. I also find that the silicone kind of grips the jar a little better, so when you're filling your jar, it doesn't tip. It doesn't tip and splash it out. There's several ways. Okay, how do I want to say this? There's different ways of filling your jars. When I'm doing meats, I'm usually just using my hands and stuffing them in. If I'm doing something big and chunky, I'm doing the same. Otherwise, I'm probably using a spoon or a ladle of some sort to get the product inside the jar, and then I've got to pour hot broth, hot water, hot something in there. Because you don't really want to dry can it. There are some things you can do that with. I haven't been thrilled with how that turns out. I've tried it. It's edible. It tastes fine, and this has been meats. I have done sausages, and in casings, and I have done hamburger. I've not done it raw, but I've done it half cooked. I've done it fully cooked. I've done it with all of the grease and juice expressed, and I've done it with broth in it. I've not liked the texture of any of it. It comes out soft and mushy. The only thing I could compare it to is the texture of the canned cat food. And the taste is okay. Do not add all your spices at the beginning. If you want to put vegetables in there with them, that's fine, but I wouldn't add spices other than a little salt maybe, because once you're canning those flavors of spices like garlic and onion and the vegetables are fine, but if excuse me, if you put the spices in, that flavor intensifies. Okay, let me get back on track. Anyway, this is my preferred, it's the only one I own right now. It's my preferred funnel, and I use it for a lot of things. This came in real handy using the quart jars to fill them with beans, rice, flours, barley, oatmeal, whatever I wanted to store in a quart jar. This made it easy to open the bag and dump it in. Anyway, and I did do a video on storing dry foods in jars and how I do it. You can find that. It wasn't very long ago, so it'll be easy to find. I'm going to try and do all of my canning videos. I'm going to put over into this playlist, which is basic canning. There's not that many of them, and I don't think I went through exactly how I did every single little thing, but I'm going to try and move those over. Okay, the other thing that you'll need is what's called a debubbler. They do make actual debubblers that you can purchase from Ball. Probably have them on Walmart, Amazon, the whole 9 yards. I somehow have lost mine. I don't know where it has gone. So I went and got we have a community kitchen upstairs, and we have real dishes, but we also have paper plates and bowls and plastic silverware. I've robbed one of the plastic knives. When they're used, they throw them away. They don't wash them and reuse any of them. So I've gotten one of their plastic knives, which will be the perfect size. It fits down in the pint and will fit down into a quart. The reason you need a debubbler, when you put your food into the jar, normally there's going to be something chunky unless you're just doing broth, and you don't have to use this. But if you have anything that has pieces in it, and then you pour your hot water, hot broth, whatever, on top of it, you need to get rid of any bubbles that may be in there, even if you can't see them. So you take this and you go down the sides, and you just kind of, not really stirring, but you go down the sides and just kind of move it around. You can go down in the middle best you can. Some vegetables don't like to move around a whole lot. Just do what you can. What you're doing is you're letting the little pockets of air in there escape. It'll come up looking like bubbles on the top sometime, which is why they call this a debubbler, because it'll be little bubbles of air stuck in between pieces of food. You want to get those out, because if you don't, and you've got your lid and stuff in here, on here, your ring on it, and you go to put it in your canner, during the canning process, that air wants out. It's feeling that pressure. That air wants out. Well, what happens is this is just loose enough, not cranked tight, so it's just loose enough, which is what you want, that air will come out. Unfortunately, you'll also lose some of the liquid when that comes out, because in pressure canning, you're not covering the whole jar with water, 2 to 3 inches above it. Your water is down here. Your water level's down here. It's the pressure that cans it, not the pressure of the water being on top of it. So either way, water bath or pressure canning, you want to do that. Get rid of the bubbles. You can end up with a false seal. You can end up with one that just doesn't seal at all. You can end up sometimes with cracked jars. If it can't escape out the top, it's going to try to escape out the side, and you can end up with cracked jars if you got too many bubbles in it. So you need a debubbler, and you need to use it every single time on every single jar, unless it's total liquid, like broth. Or, I did my tomatoes in a puree. It's kind of like the thickness of the tomato juice you buy, but just a slightly bit thicker. That's okay. I still kind of stirred it around a little bit, but it really probably wasn't necessary, because that's considered a liquid. And the bubbles have already come up to the top when you filled it. Okay. Those are the main canning tools. Another one that I got that is really, really handy is this. There goes my glitches again. It's a ring wrench. It flexes out, and it's split there so that it can reach around and grab on things. If you have, and a lot of times this happens to me, there's always some. Once it's come out of the canner, you need to remove the ring. Once everything's cooled down for 24 hours and sat there, you have to remove the rings and wash your jars. This is silicone, and it'll grab both sizes, the regular mouth and the wide mouth. You put it down and you press it down on pretty tight, and you twist it. Of course, this one was really easy because it was just I just stuck it on there. And your ring will probably stay inside, and you just use your fingers and pop it out. It will also do the wide mouth. It does both. If you're, I have had rings I wasn't even able to get loose with this because this grips it. It's like those jar openers. Okay, don't use one of those that's like a wrench kind of thing. Get one of these. It'll be much kinder to your rings so you can reuse them. If for some reason you can't get it loose, I have taken I don't use my good silverware anymore because it's the silver plated silverware that was Nana's. But you can take something with a hard edge. It doesn't have to be metal. I have a knife that has a big knife that has it's not really, it's a hard plastic on it. It does a good job. You can lightly hit around. You can first try hot water, cold water, see if that'll loosen it. Let it sit in water, the whole jar. Just let it sit in a bowl with water that covers it. See if that'll loosen it. If it doesn't, you can do this and make little tiny dents in there to get the ring off. That will work. I've done that on regular jars that I've gotten from the grocery store when the lid wouldn't come off no matter what I did. What happens is sometimes you'll get some food stuck in there. Even though you've tried to clean everything, you might get something stuck in there. Maybe you just put it on a little too tightly and it now wants to just stay there. You don't want it to. It might be a lid you've reused. It may have a little rust patch or something. As long as those are clean, you're okay to use those. But I try and change mine out before they get bad. Anyway, that's what you can do to get them open. Normally, you won't need this, especially if you've got brand new lids and brand new rings. You won't need to bang on them to get them loose. I did have one time that I got the wire cutting pliers out and I actually cut it. These are very thin aluminum, I think, or an alloy of some sort. They're very thin. So even with this on here, you can carefully get up under there to, or even from the top if you're going to open it anyway, get up under there and clip enough of it to start clipping through and peeling it off. I've only had to do that twice in over 35 years. So it's not something that happens often. It's not something to worry about. Do not just go bang with, you'll break your jar. You don't want to do that. Okay. Other things that you probably have in handy. One of these, this one I got at the thrift store. I don't know, it came with something somebody had. But it's a nice 1 cup size of a heavy glass, tempered glass measuring cup. I find these very handy to dip in and get out the water out of the boiling, if I'm having to pack it with hot liquid in it. And there's very few things that you would use cold for. But you've got to dip your water out and put it in. You can do this any way you choose. You can use your tap water, that's fine. If you're using tap water and you've got a lot of chlorine in your water, let it sit, fill a big jug or something with it and let it sit out uncovered overnight to let that chlorine evaporate. It's not good on your vegetables. Anyway, I'm generally using warm water or hot broth. So I can dip this into a pan and pull out a whole cup full and then I'm pouring it in here, and if you'll notice, I can put the bottom edge inside this funnel, and it will still, if I'm going slowly enough, it will still pour in there without spilling. I really like this funnel because of that. Part of it's the size, part of it's because it's an oval. I really like that. But you can use the smaller ones, which would be like doing it this way, because they're only going to be this big. So you can do it that way. You just have to be a little slower with it. So one of these is really, really handy because these don't break. I did use, at one time I used an old teacup, and I actually ended up, the handle broke off of it because it was too old to handle all of that hot stuff. Okay, the other thing that I like is this. We have a bench downstairs where if people want to clear out something, they'll put it down there on the bench for anybody else to pick up and take home if they want it. Somebody put this out about a year or so ago, and I grabbed it. I could see what it would do. Now this is plastic, and it's not a real thick, stiff plastic, but I can take and put hot water in here with this one that I can dip down into the hot water. I can use my ladle, and I absolutely love this wooden ladle. It's very deep, it holds a big amount, and my hands don't get hot. But I can fill that, use this to fill it as well. Okay? And then, because it's got this narrow spout, you pour slowly, otherwise it'll goosh out. And you can pour in slowly into your jar. That will also help to keep, if it's going slowly enough, to keep from getting all those bubbles, though you still want to debubble. The other thing that I use a lot of is this. This is just a metal scoop. I think it's probably an Echo brand or something like that. I can't see. Let's see. It's old. Oh no, this is a Stanley. But I've seen ones like this in the grocery stores. I use this all the time for cooking, especially stir fries. It's metal, so you can scrape along the bottom of the pan. You can scoop it out, turn things over. It's just a really nice sized scoop with the holes. So say I'm boiling chicken to can it. I use this to scoop out the pieces of chicken out of the boiling water and hold it there for a minute for it to drain off of the chicken, and then I can put the chicken in a bowl to set aside to cool. And then I can pick up all of the bones and the skin pieces or whatever is left in there that I don't want to can in the broth, and this does a really good job. One of the things that I'm going to be getting that I don't have is a small sieve, sifter kind of thing. It's one of those, they're round, they have a metal screen on them. They have some really nice ones at Walmart right now, and I want both sizes. One will be perfect to fit over the top of a narrow mouth. Another will be perfect to sit over the top of the wide mouth. They're not too expensive, but they're more than a lot of the other stuff that you may have, or that you may need. Some of these are optional. If you can't find one of these, even online for some reason, you don't want to spend the money on it. Once your jars have cooled down, use one of those rubber gripper pads like you would use to open a jar, and try it that way. Run it under hot water or cold water, and usually hot water, and see if you can get it loose that way. You're usually only going to have a problem if you tightened it down too tightly, or if you've got an older ring and it has maybe a little rust spot somewhere that it's decided to stick. So, but this does come in handy. I do recommend these. It's just, oh, here we go. It also does this. So when you're cranking on it, if you have to, you can crank it even a little harder because it goes like that. And it must be one heck of a spring because it's pretty tough. Okay, that's your basic tools. I think I got everything covered, and we're only at 40 minutes. I know, I talk too much probably, but I don't want to leave things out, and I did want to tell you about that there is a difference between a pressure cooker and a pressure canner. So if you're going to can, buy the pressure canner. If you just want to cook in one because it cooks things so much faster, then you can cook in the canner. You want to be careful not to make sure when you're done that you've cleaned everything well. Make sure you get any grease and stuff off of it. One more thing you're going to need. It's not technically a tool, but let me show you what you will need. Get yourself a bottle of vinegar. Plain white, cheap vinegar. You will use this for cleaning, and you will need this whether you're water bathing or whether you are pressure canning. You need to put a little of this. I say a glug, okay? In fact, I'll show you. Because I can pour it back in with this. Pretend this is your pot. You're going to pour, you've got your water that you need in there in the pressure canner. Usually 2 to 3 inches, depending how many jars you're throwing in there or how long it's got to stay. And I do a glug. It's not that much. You don't need to pour a ton of it in there. That is 1/3 of a cup. You could probably get away with less. I don't measure it when I'm doing that. I'm just a glug. Tip it in, let a glug go in, and put it away. You will need this. You'll probably wonder why. Well, I guess I should pour it back in there. The reason why is because tap water, well water, pretty much any water, has minerals in it. If you want your canner to stay looking nice, and it works even if it doesn't look nice inside, this helps the jars, the rings, the inside of the canner, the lid, underneath of the lid of it, because all that steam's going up to it, helps it to not hold on to the minerals. If you don't put some vinegar in there, more than likely when you go to pull your jars out, they're going to look like you frosted them or that Jack Frost came to visit. And you're going to have to soak all of your jars, clean them carefully because you've now got lids on them and you don't want to disturb that. It's going to take vinegar soaking to get that stuff off. Okay? The inside of your canner can turn black and it can look really, really ugly. But vinegar helps keep that from happening. So putting a glug of vinegar in there, even if you're doing a water bath and it's covering your jars by 2 to 3 inches, I always just put a little glug of vinegar. It's not going to hurt anything. It's not enough to just keep it from sealing. Okay? That's just the way I do it. If you don't want to, that's your choice. You will have to work harder afterwards to get your equipment clean again and get your jars clean again. I've had some jars that were just so bad that even after I'd washed them, once you've got things canned, you've taken them out of the canner, either kind, You let them set on that towel on your counter or table or whatever you've got for 24 hours or close to it, 18 to 24 hours. So usually overnight into the middle of the next day, and then you can take the rings off. And then you want to fill your sink with warm soapy water. Doesn't have to be real strong, but you want to wash every jar and the tops of the lids, and especially around this part. You want it, what you're doing is, and I would highly suggest that the soap that you use is one that you would use for dishes, because you want to get off any oils, any minuscule micro food particles that may be stuck to it. If you don't get those off, that can over time could compromise your seal, and it could come loose. I've had jars do that. When I opened up one of the boxes of jars when I moved here, I was checking them as I packed them, and you want to keep them upright at all times, and put them away upright one way or another. Mine stayed in boxes for almost 2 years, except for, we might open a box because I did random things in a box. It was just going to be easier with the situation I was in. That way I would have, some meat, some broth, vegetables, whatever in there. And I could make things that way without having to open 6 boxes to get what I needed to make a pot of soup. I know I say a lot. I'm sorry. You want to make sure you get your jars good and clean, and you can wash your rings at the same time. You rinse them well in warm water. You don't want to have to use hot. You just make sure you've rinsed all the soap off of them. That could cause an issue as well, I think. I'm not totally sure on that, but that's what I think. So you want to make sure, once again, everything's clean, and you just set them out to dry. I set them out on the same towel again, and just let them sit there for a while. And I'll usually take a towel, a clean dry towel, and wipe off the lids, because water will kind of want to settle on that. And that's only because I want them to dry as quickly as they will, so that I can write on the lid what it is and the date. So there's another thing you'll need is a nice black marker, permanent marker, or you can use labels, whichever you choose. I generally just use the black permanent markers, and I prefer the little bit fatter ones, not the little skinny ones. Let me show you what I got. These are the little skinny fine points. I don't find that they work that well for me to write on the jar lids. I like this size. You don't want the huge fat ones, giant size markers, but this one has a fine enough tip on it, there we go, that it will write nicely, but in a big enough, fat enough mark that you can easily see what it is, even if your lighting's not real good in your pantry. So these, they will work. I have used some, but because I didn't have one of these that at the time, I've gone over those other ones with the fatter one, because these are so fine point that you just have a hard time reading them. Okay, I am stopping now. We're at 49 minutes. I don't know, maybe these are all going to be like 1 hour videos. I'm going to take a little break for a few days. I have some other things I have to do, but I promise you, the next time I am canning anything, doing anything, I will film it start to finish. Okay? That'll give you a better idea, and I'm probably I don't think I have any. Well, I could can some dry beans. So that might be the first thing because that was real easy to do. And that's pressure canning. Water bathing is very, very easy, and it's such a piece of cake that I'm not sure I need to show a whole lot of that. There's lots of people out there who have done that. The two channels I listed in the last video in the description, I would highly suggest you go for thorough instructions on how to can things. Go visit Bev at Our Half Acre Homestead. If you just want interesting recipes that are different, go see Homestead Tessie. She cans all kinds of things, and a lot of them are meals in jars. And she'll do, like she does her green beans and some other things with the soup mixes for the flavor. So they're just, open and eat kind of things. So check both those channels out. They are my two favorites. There are other channels that do a great job. They don't. Bev is the only one at Our Half Acre Homestead. She's in Canada. She's the only one I know that I've watched who is very, very totally thorough, step by step by step, and tell you why she does what. So I do have some pumpkin to can. I've got some potatoes to can. It's a pie pumpkin, so it's probably only give me like 2 jars. So I may do that with some potatoes or maybe some dry beans or something. I'll figure that out. Possibly sometime this week. I'm not positive. I do have a friend here that wants to learn how to do pressure canning. And I'm going to be doing potatoes with her because I have like 15 pounds of potatoes that I got on sale. And I want to go ahead and get those in jars because I can't eat that many potatoes before they'll start going bad. But she will not want to be filmed. So I'll do a small one, a video for you guys, and then I'll work, excuse me, hiccups this morning. I'll work with her privately and show her how to do it. She's done some canning before, but not pressure canning. And like most people, it scares her. I want to show her ain't nothing to be scared about. So here we are at 52 minutes. I promise you I'm going to click the button and turn the video off so I can upload this. And thank you for coming by and watching. Thank you for all the people that showed up to my first video. My friend was right. She said it would be popular. I'm absolutely thrilled. Thank you for all the new subscribers. I enjoy doing canning. It's kind of a hobby for me, but it also keeps my pantry stocked so that I always have something I can put together to make a meal. And in case, we have major supply issues with foods, who knows? We haven't had any here so far. But if we do, or prices get too high, and I have people in the building that I know are having a really hard time, I'll go up to our community kitchen and make a big pot of vegetable soup, and everybody can welcome to come and bring you a bowl and a spoon and sit down and eat, or take it back to your apartment. This is an apartment building, and it is for seniors or handicapped. So you have to be at least 62 to apply to live here. It makes for an interesting group of people. Last year, our oldest resident was 93. Sadly, he did pass away. And he was in fairly good health. We're not real sure. He may have just had a heart attack or something. We're not sure. But most people here are over 70. I'm one of the ones. My friend Kiki she just turned 50 or 51. She lives here with her mother, who's in her 80s. She helps take care of her mother, and they share an apartment. But she also has some physical issues that make her qualified as well. So, we're a wide variety of people. Some of them grew up in this little town. Others of us are from elsewhere across the country. And it makes for an interesting group of people. But it's kind of fun to have all my friends in my same building. Haven't had this many friends in years, and it's nice to have them close. So anyway, thank you again. Thank you for coming by. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more content around basics of how to do canning, how to can individual items, I'll do my best to bring you what you need and give you what my knowledge is. And if I don't have it, I'll try to find it. Next time, I'm going to talk about books. So we're going to leave that for a separate video all of its own. Kind of hoping it might be shorter. I want to try and get these down to maybe 30 minutes. But thank you for hanging in here. If you needed to skip away or leave early, I understand. That's perfectly fine. You guys have a great day, and I will see you next time.